Hello, hello. Welcome back to the podcast. It's your girl, Kamie Crawford. And today we have Emily Ballesteros. She's a burnout management coach on the show today to show us and tell us how we can get our lives together without getting our lives together. Because I think that's the problem. Hi, Emily. How are
It's a
you?
it's a big promise. I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you because burnout is something that I feel like we all are experiencing right now collectively as a group.
Mm.
There's so much pressure to get shit done. And well, before we started recording, everyone, I want you to know that Emily and I were talking about her sign, which is Virgo.
Yes.
And Virgos, I feel like, are able to operate on another level. Do you know anything about you being a Virgo?
From what I understand, very orderly,
Yes.
very cerebral, and I looked it up in case this came up. It's
Yes.
my Virgo sun, moon, Mercury, and Venus. So
Ah,
I'm just always prepared, and I don't think I've ever been relaxed a day in my life, but it has gotten me far. It has come at a price, but it works in
oh
my favor sometimes.
my God, your that entire rundown is like you get shit done. That's your job. And your job is to get other people together too, because Virgos love a
Yeah.
project. So I
Yeah,
feel like
absolutely.
you helping people with burnout is very on brand for you.
Yeah, yeah. You know,
How did you even get into this work?
well, I burned myself out at one point. I feel like a lot of people who create solutions, it was for a problem they originally had.
Mm,
And I, for 2 years, was working full time in corporate training and development. And I was a full time graduate student, attending in person night classes at university in Chicago to get my master's degree in industrial organizational psychology. And
oof.
yeah, and I was commuting 2 to 3 hours a day on Chicago public transit. So I was standing on those platforms in negative temperatures, and
Yeah.
my entire schedule was full. I was experiencing burnout by volume, which is one of the three types of burnout. And after doing that for 2 years, the wheels started to fall off. A lot of people take a lot of pride in a really full schedule. It's kind of a status symbol, but like one of my kind of big themes in life is it doesn't matter what your life looks like, it matters what it feels like.
Mm,
And my life looked great and it felt so horrible. And that
yeah.
was when I really had to look being like high achieving in the face and decide what was worth it and what wasn't, and be willing to do less and my life look different to then lead a life that I actually wanted to show up to every day. So that's
Wow.
a short version of how I got into burnout.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I 1000 everything that you say, I've came across you on TikTok and that's how I was like we have to talk to her
Oh, good.
because
Okay.
I get it. And I feel like I'm as a rising Virgo, I am always operating on a certain level of burnout that I
Mhm.
find to be unsustainable. But also
Mhm.
when I'm not as busy, I feel like I'm not doing shit. Like I feel like I'm not achieving.
Yeah.
I'm not like there are things that are passing me by and opportunities. And if I just did
Yes.
more, then I would be able to have more or be able to, have access to certain things or what have you. And
Mhm.
I feel like with it being the top of the year, everybody is trying to maximize their potential. It's like the same shit that happened during COVID is what
Yeah.
happens at the top of every year is like, how can we maximize our time right now to do? And like sometimes you
Yes.
need to minimalize.
Yes, absolutely. So, a conversation I have with so many high achievers is the feeling of being in debt to your potential
Mm.
and seeing blank space as potential. Like you have a free week and you see it as potential instead of seeing it as a free week and just kind of letting yourself be bored and seeing where that takes you. And instead, we have access to so many things, so many potential futures that we can create if we just work hard enough. And at a certain point, that's debilitating as opposed to inspiring.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost so busy that I feel uninspired to like be creative because there's
Mhm.
so much going on. It's like, where do I even draw inspiration from? How, like, there's no space. There's the
Yeah.
disc is full. The disc
Yes.
is full.
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like we're actually seeing that shift in media because creativity nowadays it feels like people use creativity more to reach a certain goal, or it's kind of a marketing skill. And it's something where the spaces where we're creative, we're also bowing down to an algorithm or
Mm,
to what's trending. And that's creating in a certain direction with a certain goal. And creativity doesn't really have a goal, like it just is. And so
yeah.
we're not really experiencing creativity in the way that it used to be. Right now, it's a lot of it is, can I be creative and also likable and also meet these goals with it?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I wanted to ask you a basic question that I think we all feel, but don't necessarily know how to put the words to what we're feeling, which is like, what is burnout?
Yeah. Burnout is it's prolonged exhaustion. It can be described. I can read the
Me.
list of
I
signs and symptoms of burnout,
I
but
have all of the
it
signs and
is
symptoms.
it is doing more. I think Greg McEwen says this. It's doing more today than you can recover from tomorrow, and it's doing that consistently. And when we're not in a state of burnout, we get a full night's sleep. We wake up really rested. We're not dreading our day. We're not looking at our to do list with anxiety. We're just doing what we need to do, get to the end of the day. We're a little bit more tired, but we haven't drained ourselves to zero. We have
Mm,
enough energy to go through our evening. We even have energy to engage in a hobby or something. And then we just go to sleep, not dreading the next day that follows. And that is not how most people live their life. Most
yeah.
people are waking up already dreading what they have to do, rush through their morning, are bouncing from thing to thing. They're like sprinting from responsibility to responsibility. Their day ends and they are already so mentally tapped out, or so mentally fatigued that whatever they do with their evening, it's like a crapshoot. It's like maybe like, and God bless the people with children, because
Yeah.
even if you
Oh
don't have
my
kids, you're like,
God.
I'm so tired. All I can do is like watch my TV show and scroll on my phone because I just don't want to have to use my brain. And some people have to take care of other people.
Yeah, I can't imagine it. I can't.
Yeah.
Well, I will one day, hopefully, God willing, but like, holy shit. Because
Yeah.
sometimes the only plans that I want for the night is a glass of wine that's taller than me, and I'm 5'9",
Mhm.
and mindless TV show. Like sometimes TV
Yeah.
can even be too much. Like I want mindless scrolling,
Mhm.
mindless show, and like to completely just turn it all off. Do not disturb on my phone is like my favorite feature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you
Absolutely.
recommend
I
using
agree.
that?
Yes. And then also one of the big pieces of like burnout management is boundaries. Cause some people say like, do not disturb. I don't care.
Yeah,
Keep like
notify
push this
anyway.
message through.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a real thing. That's a real
yeah.
thing. I have heard you talk about like signs of burnout. How do you
Mhm.
know when you're experiencing burnout?
Yes. Okay, let me look at my list. So I'm making sure I'm getting the big ones that I feel like most people go,
Hmm.
"Oh shit." Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's I actually have that one. So some signs of burnout are emotional and physical exhaustion that you don't typically feel, anxiety around work, like after work or on weekends, or if your schedule is so condensed that you're working early and through lunch and after work and catching up on weekends, trouble sleeping because of the stress, whether that means you're actually struggling with some insomnia or you're rolling over in bed a dozen times to grab your phone and make a note of something you need to remember to do
Yeah.
tomorrow, pessimism or cynicism, especially if you're usually a really upbeat, optimistic person, when you start to feel really backed into a corner and like unhappy, even though
Mm.
objectively on paper your life is pretty good, but you start to feel that pessimism, cynicism, that's usually a sign. And then alongside kind of clinical signs like that, you'll also notice personal red flags, which are just kind of things that we do when we are coping. And so that's things like a lot of times people start online shopping more. Like for a lot of people, their Amazon delivery driver is like the first one to know they're really going through something because he's like, I'm at this bitch's house every day. She is like clearly going through it.
You,
Ordering food more often
Emily,
because,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
I have to stop you.
go ahead.
Have we met? Like, do you live in my house secretly?
I'm actually your Amazon delivery driver. I'm just kidding.
I'm so embarrassed. Oh my God, why
It's
is that
real. Yeah.
me?
Yeah. Yeah. People have to make it worth it to them. And so we start looking for other ways to make it worth it.
Retail therapy. It's
Yeah,
a real thing.
it is. It
Oh my
really is. It gives
God.
us dopamine. We're excited. Uh,
I think
But
when I'm at my lowest mentally is when I have the most Amazon delivery packages.
yes, then you come out of the haze and it's like, I really didn't need this special frying
I
pan.
did. I saw it on
In the
TikTok.
moment. Yeah,
It was in
exactly.
Emily, what's her name? Callie. Her name is Callie or Kaylee. She's amazing. She posts every single Amazon favorites you didn't know you needed. Yeah, I do need
Mhm.
all of them.
I can't
I'll take
even
them.
watch them. I have to scroll past because I'm like, if I don't know, like, you know, how, like if I see a store that I want to go into, but I'm trying not to spend money, then I'm like, I can't even go in the store. Like, why
Yeah,
would I create, like, it's like a gambling addict just going into a
yeah.
casino? Just don't even go in. I have to just skip past the ads. I can't even know what I'm missing out on, or it starts to fester. So I just don't even go in the store.
Wow. Okay. Well, you
Yeah.
called me the fuck out. Okay, so what's the next
Sorry
one?
about that one.
Okay.
The next is ordering food.
Oh my
More
God.
often, just a little bit easier there.
You're talking about me. This is my
Sorry.
show. How could you do this to me?
I should have sent this to you first to proofread. I'm sorry.
Seriously, I'd be like, delete all that shit.
Don't say this. Yeah.
That is so. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, you're good. Avoiding texts or calls or DMs, letting those things get away from you because it just feels like more correspondence. At a certain point for a busy person, text calls and DMs and FaceTimes, it's like just getting another email. It's like I can't put energy towards this right now. I feel so drained.
Sometimes I get
Uh
angry. Sometimes I
yes,
get
yeah.
angry when I get messages because like people will send me like, and I love a voice note, but sometimes people
Hmm.
send me like 5 minute long voice notes, and I'm like, what the fuck made you think
I
that
know.
I have the time to listen to this shit like it's a podcast right now? But
Yes.
then when I'm not feeling burnt out, I'm like, ooh, oh my God, a juicy voice note. It's so different
Yes.
when I
Yeah.
feel like myself and when I feel like I'm being run into the ground by
Mhm.
myself.
Yes, that's like a huge thing when I talk about boundaries. It's like people are like, when do I set a boundary? When is it appropriate? And a lot of people have tuned themselves out and tuned their intuition out for long enough because it just that was either how they were raised or it didn't serve them as well as people pleasing did or whatever it is.
Mm.
But you know what it feels like when a request is made of you and you either do or do not have the resources to give to that thing. Like if you're in a like kind of slow boring season of life and somebody asks you to help move on a Saturday, you're like, yeah, absolutely. That
Yeah.
sounds fun. Actually, I
Yeah.
will order pizza for us. Let's do it. Versus when you are working until 8 p.m. every night of the week and somebody asks you to move on a Saturday,
You're
it's
like, who the
like a
fuck do you think
full
I am?
body, like,
Moving
fuck
company?
no, I don't. Yes. I would rather pay movers to
Yeah.
come to your house and do this than me
Yeah.
have to go help you because I'm so tired. And it says
Yeah.
nothing about the relationship or how much you care about that person. Honestly, the people you care about most kind of get the worst of it because it's like my mom will understand. Sorry, mom, screening all your calls, but like this one
Right.
friend who I talk to once a quarter, like, will the friendship die if I don't answer that one?
Hmm.
So it is really just, you know what it feels like when you have that resentment or that anger towards requests. That's probably just a need for a boundary because you've hit a limit.
Yeah. I've been there many, many a
Yeah.
time, especially during COVID. I think
Oh
there
yeah.
were a lot of relationships that I had to let go because it just was requiring too much of my energy or just like mental space. And like, I'm a person who I'm a Scorpio. Mhm.
Hmm.
And
Love
I don't
that.
know if you know anything about us, but we're insane, but also we're all or nothing type of people. Like
Hmm.
we either love you or we hate you. We're either 1000% invested or we don't give a fuck at all. And like there's
Yeah.
no gray area. So when it comes to my relationships, I'm the same way. I am either so obsessed with you and like I would do anything for you or you know or not.
Yeah.
So it just got to a point for me where I was like, I can't even think right now. And if I can't be the best possible friend for my friendships, then I need to take a step back and like reevaluate, recalibrate. And it took a long time. And then of course I came out of it feeling bad that like I couldn't invest, but I didn't have it to give. And I was honest about that with a lot of
Yeah.
my friends. I was just like, I just don't have it. I just don't have it
Yeah.
to give right now. And I wish that more people could be understanding of that. I think that sometimes
Hmm.
when we express our burnout or, our being overwhelmed, people take it personally. And
Hmm.
setting those boundaries can be difficult. So how do you recommend setting boundaries or expressing burnout to not just friends, but like to your job?
Yeah. It's so hard and it feels so different expressing them to friends or family versus in a professional setting because you can just use
Mhm.
different language and like something that I say is like you can get a new boss, new colleagues. You can't get like a new mom. You can't get a new like you have to you treat those relationships differently. I would say when you're communicating a boundary, I'll do one at a time with like friends or family. What is most helpful, which is outside of our control, is when they're also very busy and they understand. Like
Mhm.
they've been there and they get it. I
Yeah.
feel like I have the hardest time with people who have so much free time and just can't even like haven't been they've probably been burned out in their life but
Mhm.
haven't been burned out in long enough that they don't understand what it's like in the trenches, that like
Yeah.
the recommendation to meditate is like you are so far out of touch with my
Oh
day to day
my
right now
God.
if you think meditating is my problem. Trust
People
me,
tell me
that's
to meditate. They're like, there's just like, I have this app, it has a 5 minute meditation. I don't give a fuck. I can't even breathe.
Yeah, yeah,
I can't even
trust
breathe.
me,
I haven't gotten any sleep. If I could allow my mind to stop racing enough to be able to meditate or just have silence for 5 minutes in my brain, yeah, I would take it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes. It's not the time for me to learn a new skill right now.
No, no, much.
So, yeah, I think that having people who know the trenches and who can empathize is easiest. But when it comes to expressing boundaries at work, a lot of it is figuring out what the role even has the potential to look like, assuming that it's the role itself that might be causing you that burnout by volume because it's workload related.
Mhm,
And in that case, it's how do I make this job manageable so that I actually want to continue to work here for X period of time? And then if you
mhm,
can make those changes so you can shape it in a way that makes it livable for you, wonderful. If you can't and you know you're fighting an uphill battle and it's kind of just like a ticking time clock until you've had enough, because the way that this job looks is just not the lifestyle you want to live long term. That's what how you kind of figure it out for workload is you have a lot of conversations with whoever you need blessings from to kind of reshape your work. A lot of people also experience social burnout, which is one of the other three types of burnout. And that's when you work with really difficult,
me.
not always difficult people, but like you work with a lot of people and you're fielding a lot of different unpredictable things that people can bring with them.
Mhm.
And so by the end of the day, then you experience a lot more of that emotional exhaustion because you're fielding a lot more.
Emily, I know we just met, but I want to cuddle you right now because
Yeah, absolutely.
so seen. I feel so seen because, my job is talking and it is a lot of, I absorb a lot. I'm an empath just like by nature. And, even on Catfish, I host the show Catfish, and we
Yeah.
hear a lot of stories, a lot of things that don't even make it to TV because they
Yeah.
can't for legal reasons or whatever. And, I have this podcast and I am constantly receiving questions from people that follow me about their lives and their relationships. And I feel so honored that they even trust me with this information. But
Yeah.
that's not to say that it's not still a lot with all of the things that have going on. And then on top of that, I'm an eldest daughter and I have
Same.
5 sisters. Okay, so you get it. Like
Yeah.
I'm the go-to person for all of my friends, my family, everyone. Even my mom will call me and ask me for advice.
Yeah.
So the social burnout is real, and there are times, a lot of times, like when I finish an episode of the podcast or even the show where like I just have to go into my room and shut it all down and shut it all off, be
Mhm.
able to like build up that social battery. And there are some people who have an unlimited social battery. I know when I've hit my max. I know when
Yeah.
I've hit my max. And I have been trying to be more open about that with like friends, with my boyfriend, with just, people in general. I've tried to kick FOMO to the curb because it's not worth me being out and feeling like I want to die right now. Just
Yeah,
being here with all
absolutely.
of you. So I
Are you
understand.
more extroverted or introverted?
I say that I am an introvert masquerading as an extrovert.
Hmm.
It's a very
Yeah.
Scorpio trait. I love to talk to people. I love to get people's juiciest secrets and stories. And I find that when I'm out, people
Mm.
are very people are very attracted to me. No, people are very, like, attracted to speaking with me and, like, sharing things about
Yeah.
themselves with me, and, even just the other day, I was out and this girl was she listens to the podcast, hey boo, and she was, like, just talking to me and telling me about her dating life and, like, her ex-boyfriend and all this, and then she was like, "I don't know why I'm telling you all of this, but, like, I just feel like I can."
Yeah.
And I love that. I've had Uber drivers cry to me before. Like, I
Oh,
love that. I love that.
yeah.
But even with all of that, I get tired too, because I also have
Yeah.
my own shit, that
Mhm.
I'm working through too. But I am definitely I appear very extroverted, but I do and have, as I've gotten older, started to value more of my alone time and, like,
Yeah.
my home is my sanctuary. I don't really have
Mhm.
anyone come over because I
Yeah.
just have to keep the energy the same constant.
Yeah. Yeah. Some consistency somewhere
Yes,
at
yes,
least.
exactly,
Yeah. That makes
exactly.
sense. Yeah.
I have heard
Absolutely.
you on your channel talk about third spaces and
Mhm.
how we've kind of I feel like we've kind of done away with the idea of them. I don't wanna get ahead of myself and your point, but can you tell us about what that even is?
Yeah. So a third place is something that used to be more plentiful. It was like if you've watched Friends, it was the coffee shop they went to. It was somewhere that wasn't work and wasn't home and that you could go socialize. A lot of countries have like parks where after work or after you pick up your kids, everybody just goes over to the park, grabs like a
Mhm.
latte or something or a drink and socializes while the kids do their thing. A lot of times this was like skate parks or movie theaters or the mall
Yeah,
or just these places that people would go that wasn't work or home. And n- those spaces got narrowed down over time. A lot of people have been priced out of those kinds of places. Like there's also this wave of people being upset that tweens are in Sephora and
my god,
they're
yes.
saying like, well, this is like their, version of a third space. All they see online is influencers pushing these products. So of course
Mhm.
they want to be like the cool kids. And also this is the place to do that. So the whole conversation is just around how people it feels like they kind of just have one place because now their home their work is at home if they work from home,
Mhm.
and there's not these other spaces that people go and frequent. It's not the way that it was when it came to living life outside of the home.
Yeah. Oh, I remember, I mean, growing up, we had, like, community centers and,
Yeah.
after school activities, of course, when you're in school are great, but there are a lot of kids who don't have that, don't have access to that.
Yeah.
For adults, I mean, yeah, it's like, I just think of, like, Cheers, like, when you go to the bar and everybody knows your name and, like,
Mm-hmm.
coffee shops in every single sitcom that we've ever watched before where people can meet up and, like, this is their
Yeah.
safe space to be able to have conversations with friends, and I feel like now people are so burnt out that they wait till the weekend to be able to have that time, and then you have people who are working on the weekends. Now listen, I've never had a corporate job, so I'm very I understand my privilege in
Mm-hmm.
saying this, but why the fuck are we working on the weekends?
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
we don't get paid to work on the weekends, if
Mm-hmm.
on a corporate level. Like,
Yeah.
if you have for my job, shit, what is a weekend? Like, I might not have a weekend or a weekend off for weeks at a time, and I have to
Mhm.
create my own days off, so to speak, but, like, my sisters will be working on the weekends, and I'm like, "Why are you making Excel spreadsheets on a Saturday?"
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sounds like criminal activity.
I know.
Is there a world where we can create boundaries with that?
There is, and a lot of it, I mean, part of it is on our side of the street, and we can look at what we can do with like the five pillars of burnout management are our mindset, time management, stress management, boundaries, and personal care. And so something like mindset for a lot of people who are working in excess, they have convinced them there's a reason that they're doing it. Some people do it begrudgingly. Many people, I'm sure, have to do it begrudgingly.
Mhm.
But some people, burnout is like a badge of honor, or like they've convinced themselves, like, by doing this, I'm setting myself apart, or I'm only doing this through this busy season. And maybe there's a reward for it, or they've just accepted they're part of an industry where that season looks like that. So there's usually a mentality behind doing things a certain way like that. But then some of it is on the corporation side and choosing where you work very thoughtfully because some places have reasonable expectations and other places will literally take the best parts of you and the high achiever in you and just milk you for absolutely everything that you're worth. And there's no reward for, oh, I can't even say that no reward, but for a lot of people, there's not the same reward for hard work. It doesn't necessarily get them a notable promotion. The reward for hard work is more work. Like they see
Mm,
a high performer and they overload them because they know that they're reliable, and then they burn them out. And that person ends up wanting to go leave or work somewhere else and
yeah.
then pretend that their 70% is their 100% so that they don't get taken advantage of again.
Right. And I feel like too for women in the workspace, I was going to say space, but then I said place, in the workplace,
You're good.
it's even more difficult because and if you're a woman of color or, any other type
Mhm.
of part of any other marginalized community, there is so much pressure to perform and to be your best and to be at your best and to not make excuses and to not or quote unquote excuses and to not complain or express being overwhelmed because somebody else can come in and take your spot because there's always
Mhm.
somebody who wants the number one spot.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that
Absolutely.
is so much pressure and
Yeah.
exhausting and
Yeah.
unsustainable
Yeah.
and sexist and
Mhm.
ableist and the list goes on.
Yeah,
I just
all the
feel like
ists.
it's all of it. It's all of it. And it's no
Yeah.
wonder that we're all experiencing this feeling. Um,
Mhm.
I feel
Yeah.
like, when we got out of the pandemic, everything was about, really focusing in on the things that matter to you. So many people quit their 9 to 5s and like started a business or did something that actually fueled their soul because maybe their regular job didn't. And we had this collective mindset of do what makes you happy, like do the things that
Mhm.
fuel you. We don't know how long we've got. Like there at any point we could be locked up in the house again, or you could lose
Yeah.
your job, or like these jobs don't care about you. Like do what makes
Yeah.
you happy. And then I feel like less than a year out of the pandemic, everyone's like, do the most, do it all. Why are you slacking? Nobody wants to work these days, which I still agree with that message. Right message, wrong messenger. But like I feel like we have lost the plot that we
Mhm.
just established.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I'm exhausted. I don't know about
Yeah. They're calling it the Great Exhaustion, which I believe
you.
Cal
Mhm.
Newport wrote an article about. And I'm actually working on a piece with Time to kind of talk about it further because there's this collective exhaustion, and he's primarily talking about it in the workplace, but and as we shift back and forth from hybrid and all of that, but collectively, people are really tired, and like you said, I mean, we're getting so many messages about how to be, and I almost think that it's more beneficial to just tune everything out and ask yourself, like, what does a good life look like for me?
Mm,
It's actually a lot simpler than I would have thought it was. Like for me, if I can wake up and have a slow, reasonable morning and drink my coffee, I do my work throughout the day, which I really enjoy. And then I want to stop around, I don't know, it depends on the day, but let's say I really want to stop at 4 p.m. Then I want to go do my little workout at Orange Theory. So I get out of the house and
mhm.
do a little jog and then just come home and like shower, make dinner, and read in bed. I'm a huge reader.
Yeah.
And that's I want to read for like 2 or 3 hours a night. That's my best life. Like I'm
Yes.
so happy with that. But there are so many things that you're told to want. And once a lot of times you don't know that you don't really want them until you have them. I always thought that traveling for work was going to be just like the peak, like I would be peaking at that point. And I'm still so
Mhm.
willing to travel for work, but also I'm like, this is mostly sitting at the airport. This
Yeah.
is actually not
Yeah.
it's what it's all cracked up to be.
Yeah.
And so like once you do that and it's like I thought I wanted this. Like I work with so many people who thought that they wanted something, get there, it burns them out, and they're like, I was actually so much happier when I had time to go play pickup basketball after work, or when I,
Mm,
just did my woodwork hobby
yeah.
after work. You want less than you think you do, but you almost have to like touch the stove to realize it's hot before you pedal to that.
It's so real. When I first got with my therapist, she put me on to this Instagram account called the Nap Ministry
Oh
that
yeah, I follow
talks
them.
about love the Nap Ministry. They just
Yeah.
talk about the value and not beating yourself up about needing to take a fucking nap. Who would have
Yeah.
thought that I needed an Instagram account to convince me that it's okay for me to take a nap when I'm tired? Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy the expectations that society puts on us, of course, but that we put on ourselves and then we put on each other. Like when I'm out and I run into people, obviously it's a great compliment for people to be like, you're killing it. You're all over the place. You're doing this, you're doing that. I'm like, yeah, and I'm crumbling.
Yeah.
Crumbling some days. It isn't easy to do it all. You
Hmm.
can make it look easy, but that doesn't mean that the crown isn't heavy. It can
Yeah.
be heavy a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And it's golden handcuffs.
golden handcuffs,
Yeah.
golden handcuffs. Golden prison. It really is true. And I struggle with, and I wonder if you have advice for this. I struggle with maintaining or feeling, how do I put this into words? Having so much on my plate, being burnt out,
Hmm.
being sad about being burnt out because I feel ungrateful when I
Hmm.
have the things that I've always wanted to have and I'm doing the things that I've always wanted to be doing and there's so much more that I want to do. And a lot of times, like, I'll be just the other day this happened. I was crying. Well, I couldn't really cry because I had just got my lashes done and
Hmm.
could
Oh,
not
the
cry because
worst. Yeah.
Bill can't get them up for 24 hours. I was like tearing up and trying to hold back
Yeah.
tears, talking to my boyfriend about how exhausted I was.
Yeah.
I was so tired. My feet burned, my whole body burned. It just felt like I was just like buzzing. And I knew that I had a crazy week ahead, which is this week and into next. And I was just feeling sad. But then I was like, but I'm so grateful. Like, I don't want to sound ungrateful. And he was like, you don't sound ungrateful. You just sound like you're tired. And that's okay.
Hmm.
And, of course, then he gave me some perspective and blah, 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 because men always like to try to fix. I don't want to fucking hear it. I
Yeah.
want to complain right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but how do you, what's your advice for getting people to realize that it's okay to feel all of the things that you're feeling and be a human being, but then also like not lose your gratitude, that your gratitude is not at risk because you feel these things?
Yeah. Kind of like we were talking about earlier, how women will do funny things with themselves when it comes to like something like gratitude and rest. It's almost like we weaponize gratitude against ourselves. And it's like,
Mm,
I should be so grateful. Other people have it so much worse. I don't even deserve to be burned out. Like, look at least I'm burned out and I have all these things. Like, there's so many people who are burned out working three jobs and they don't have these things, you know? And so we like use it to kind of invalidate what it is we're feeling. It's hard to enjoy anything when you're tired.
mm,
And you can't argue with tired. Like you just need a certain amount of rest in order to recover from that. So a lot of that is kind of the mental game. And especially when you're in a season of burnout. So if you know, I have these two insane weeks that would burn anybody out if they were doing them, I need to only really think like this is temporary. I'm giving myself, 3 days off as soon as this is over. This is temporary. I'm never doing this to myself again. And I have this time off, this recovery. And it's just having that light at the end of the tunnel and taking really good care of yourself in the pockets that you can. So like automating food, making sure that you are getting however much sleep you need. People need different amounts of sleep to be functional,
mhm,
relying on social support like a boyfriend or somebody to pick up any extra weight that you might not be able to handle that week, like doing dishes or doing laundry or like picking up different things. But a lot of times, if it's short-term burnout, it's what does my survival mode look like? It looks like I eat the same exact thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I know I need enough sleep. It doesn't matter if I want to do the revenge bedtime procrastination where you go on your phone late at night instead of sleeping because it feels like that's the only time you have to yourself. That's another sign of burnout.
you. I've got all
But
the signs of
we
burnout.
but we don't do that when we're in survival mode. So it's what does your survival mode look like? And then how long can you really do that? And for some people, it is like, okay, it's 2 weeks. Or for some people, like accountants, it's like, it's tax season. And so for the next 3 months, I'm in robot survival mode, but then I'm taking this break and that will make it worth it to me. I'm doing this and that will make it worth it to me. And to prevent this feeling this way again, I'm going to, take these precautions so I don't end up in this exact same spot again. It's really a dance. Like most people who experience burnout experience it more than once in their life. It just comes in waves and it comes down to personal management to get through it. How we manage ourselves plays just as big a role as what the external circumstances are.
Yeah. Ugh. I feel like I related literally everything that you said that I can't even remember if we talked about the three different types of burnout.
I've mentioned two of them, but the third one, so there's burnout by volume, which is just filling your plate to the brim, very little recovery time. Life
Yep.
feels like a stack of dominoes and like one falls over and the rest of them just like you see the day start to crumble.
Yep.
And then social burnout, which is not necessarily burnout by things, but burnout by people, and you're doing a lot more fielding of other people. And then burnout by boredom, which is it's not a fault when we experience burnout by boredom, but our brains love novelty and variety, and when our lives get too repetitive, a lot of people can switch into autopilot and feel really uninspired and disengaged from their life, and then that ends up leading to burnout over time because that weighs on the spirit quite a bit.
Mm, I definitely have types A and B.
Hmm.
Burnout A and B for sure. Burnout by
Yeah.
boredom shit is never boring. It's never boring.
Yeah.
That I will
Hmm.
say. But I can
Yeah.
understand that, yeah, having the same routine and not switching things up can contribute. What's your advice for that?
For burnout by boredom, like I'll paint the picture of somebody who's worked in the same kind of slow paced job for a really long time, maybe going to the office. You used to go to the office, but now you work from home and you have maybe a total of like 3 hours of work a day. And while some people would be so happy with that, they're happy to do other things with their time. Other people feel like I want to be engaged in what I'm doing. Like I hate the work that I'm doing for these 3 hours so much that it lasts the whole 8 hours, and I still sometimes don't even get to all of it because they just are having so much trouble with being disengaged. And we do better in life. Like we have higher satisfaction in life when we are engaged in what we're doing. We care about the outcome. We are sitting up straight. Like most people do better with a slightly busier schedule than a really slow schedule
Mm,
because it just forces you to sit up straight and be engaged in life. So somebody who's in that kind of position, it's asking yourself, given your current circumstances, are there things that you want to add that add engagement to your life? Do you need to, try waking up at a different time? Try doing different meals throughout the day, try doing new hobbies, try taking new classes, try talking to new people, do all the things in your day at different times of day. Is there something else you can do to shake up engagement? Or do you want to do the job thing and transit, like try a new field or a new job, or take a certificate or a course, or get a degree or something like that in another area that's of interest to you that you would be engaged in? And then at that point it's plugging in engagement if you can.
hmm. Yeah, I have a lot of friends that, have their regular 9 to 5s, but then they have so many other aspirations and they're like, I feel so consumed by my 9 to 5 that I can't explore these other facets of myself and these
Yeah.
things that I really want to do.
Yeah.
Is there a way to carve out time for those things other than like working yourself overtime and then burning yourself out?
Yeah, you really have to fight for it nowadays. And the structure that we have is not human centered, it's business centered. Like work is the center of most people's lives. They plan their life around work as opposed to work just being something that fits into their life.
Mm,
And so you really have to, unfortunately, fight for it in the world we live in. But it's rarely is it all or nothing. It's like I either get to practice guitar for 2 hours like I wanted to, or like it's not even worth it. I'm not going to do it. A lot of
mhm.
times that does look like doing something for 30 minutes just to get started, especially when you're tired, because, that guitar, that book, that doesn't stand a chance against TikTok. Like
Yeah.
TikTok's so much easier, so much more engaging. So it's making those hard choices in those moments, especially when you're tired. And then just finding kind of almost doing it with a sense of indignance where it's like, you know what? Like, how dare all the responsibilities in my life try to take my life from me.
Hmm.
I'm not going to be miserable. I refuse to be miserable and put responsibilities first always. I'm also going to do these things that I enjoy with my own life. And if I can't have 30 minutes of my own day for myself, I have lost the plot.
Mm-hmm. I know the moms are listening to this, like,
Yeah.
yeah, bitch, that's better
Yeah.
fucking said than done.
Yeah.
But I feel like we don't really have another choice. It's either like it's like something that you have to do in order to be able to feel that fulfillment that you need in
Mhm.
your life, and maybe asking for help from a third party for whatever the thing is that you feel like you're the only person who can do this thing. Like, you don't know that that's true
Mhm.
unless you're asking, and like hopefully you have good people surrounding you that are willing to give you that you know life vest that are willing
Mhm.
to help you out. I
Yeah.
think that that's important too.
Yeah.
What is your advice for turning it off? Because it can be really difficult for a lot of us. At the end of the day, I feel like my mind is racing in a million different directions. My boyfriend 1000% has burnout. He's listened to this episode because he wake up, he tosses and turns at night, and he wakes up at like 4:30 in the morning every single morning, which I don't feel is normal. But by the time I've woken up, he's
Mhm.
like written a book, jogged 10 miles, and like done all of these, like had a full
Yeah.
day. But I think that a lot of times the things that we think are like good traits about ourselves, like, oh, I'm a super early riser, but are you getting enough rest? And like, are you rising
Mhm.
earlier because your mind is on it and racing so much that like you can't start your morning off slower? So anyway, all that I'm saying, what can we do to turn our minds off sometimes?
Yeah. So I would say a lot of this depends on personality and how you're used to managing yourself because it's a you have to get to you have to do this in a way that you're comfortable with. So like I'll describe what I do and I like have a when I talk about stress management in my book, this is one of the tools that I talk about and it's having a tangible intangible list. I like close out each of my work days with a tangible intangible list and that is on the tangible side, it's like actual to do items, like things that I know I need to do the next day. I'll keep adding to it as the night goes
Mhm.
on and I get more emails or I get more DMs or I remember I have to do stuff. I just keep adding it to the next day. And I remind myself after 5 p.m., like nobody even wants to get an email from me. Like they don't want me to email them either. They want to
Mhm.
go do their own thing. So it's a courtesy and you can kind of reframe it that way instead of like proving I'm working late. It's like, they really would prefer I didn't. So tangible things. And then intangible things are like stressors that come up throughout the day, stories we're telling about, oh, this person got off the phone with me really quickly. Like, were they upset with me? Or this person seemed annoyed in this thing. So, what could that mean? Like, what if this it ends up having backlash in some way? Like, this person was really difficult in this meeting. I should have said these things. And then mulling over those things. They're intangible. There's no to do item for those types of things. But a lot of times they can follow us home just as much as the tangible items can. And
Mhm.
so, on that side, you dump out all of those things and be really clear with yourself. These things don't have a resolution. These things don't have an action that I can take. So I can put them down and like maybe save them for like a therapy session or something, but I
Yeah.
refuse to carry them around with me because none of those other people involved in that intangible thing are probably at home thinking about this. They're at home stressed about what they're going to make for dinner and like the fact that their shirt for tomorrow is wrinkled. They don't care. So you have by having both of those lists, that's how my brain works. Is that's kind of like the right brain, left brain breakdown too of technical versus emotion based and social. And so I can put those things there if things pop up for me because the thoughts probably aren't going to stop. I just need a place to redirect them where I feel like they're
Mhm.
captured and then I can do what I'm doing. So if I'm like sitting there trying to eat my baked potato, watch The Walking Dead, and I think of 5 things I need to do tomorrow and 3 things I could be stressed about, I just put them on the list and I'll worry about them tomorrow.
Mm. Mm. Tomorrow. It's
Yeah.
only a day away. You can you can let it rest. I
Yeah.
Yeah, I am definitely that. I think because I thought it was because I'm a Virgo rising, but I think yeah, I think you have diagnosed me officially with
Mhm.
type A and type B burnout, and
Yeah.
I thank you for that.
Yeah,
Because I knew I
absolutely.
wasn't crazy. I am, but like I
Yeah.
knew it was work. It's
Self-awareness
clinical.
shouldn't be a punishment. Yeah, when you
Yeah.
know, it makes it even easier to work around because we're
Yeah.
always managing ourselves. And I feel like the better you get, like that's what the biggest, and it's so hard to teach. And that's why I really love coaching, but you can only coach people to the point of their demeanor. And then a lot of that is they're either born with it or they like were raised a certain way. And so it would take just a longer period of time than we had to overcome that. But it, different people need different types of management when it comes to how they're talking to themselves and what they do, like if that tool would work for them or not, or if they'd even be open to a tool like that.
Yeah. I'm convinced that I personally need a nanny
Yeah.
uh, for myself. I don't have
Yes.
kids, but I do think that a nanny would be great. Somebody
Yeah.
to make sure that, I have food, clothes
Hmm.
washed.
I was just talking to somebody about how like we do what we have to do at work typically because a manager has these